A blessed day, everyone. I am Jamela, and welcome again to Book and I. It is a program that will look on different books and their insights, which will help us to grow more in faith and practice. We are now moving forward to another part of this book, which mainly revolves around cultural engagement. In this chapter, we will see shifts in the culture of the West, which gave birth to models on how the church responds to cultural changes. Let us look together and learn from the cultural crisis of the church. In the mid of the 20th century, a dramatic change in the Western culture began. From a society whose views is largely congruent with Christian teaching, the very idea of moral authority was started to be questioned. And because of this, it became increasingly harder for evangelical churches to be indifferent to culture. The question we will have now is, how does the evangelical church relate to culture in most part of the 20th century? The first approach that the author showed to us in this chapter is pietism. It views culture as not an important thing to be engaged to and thinks that increasing the number of Christians will change the society. But James Hunter convincingly argued that numbers do not always equate with influence. And in addition to that, from the book itself, it says, the reality is that if the church does not think much about culture, about what parts are good, bad, or indifferent according to the Bible, its members will begin to uncritically imbibe the values of the culture. They will become assimilated to culture despite intentions to the contrary. So pietistic stance began to fade, and evangelicals started to look for models how to relate Christ to culture. These are where the emergence of two known models arise. The first one has its roots on Christian worldview, which called Christians to engage and change the culture by carrying out their vocation in a distinctively Christian worldview. Later on, it had another wing, which is called the religious rights, which connects this concept to a political action in support of conservative policies. The second model is known to be the seeker church movement. Here, the non-Christians were not asked to hurdle major cultural barriers in order to become a believer. It sought to reinvent the church by adapting to the techniques from the business world so it would appeal to the secular and church people. Many from the young evangelical leaders agreed that both these two models failed to relate to culture rightly, and not long after did the Christian respond not only to the cultural shifts but also to these two responses. Now, what does the author want us to see here? Let me tell you and end this by quoting this part of the book. My main aim in examining the models is to suggest that the way forward on how to best engage culture is a careful balance among several polarities. The emergence of the model to cope up with the cultural shifts in the West comes from a careful study and desire to make the gospel relevant to their culture. Yes, surely it has its pros and cons, but what I wanted to highlight here is their action to make the gospel relevant to their society. How about us? How do we do it? Do we make an effort to make the gospel relevant to our community? Well, maybe it is a wake-up call for us now to learn from them and to study how to engage with the culture, keeping our mission as a Christian. And that is the chapter we have today. Hope you learned something and may the peace of Christ be with us all. Again, this is Book and I.